Hello there everybody, Sam Strains here, welcome back to the Railway and welcome to another Hornby Railroad Loco review. So today we're going to be looking at really one of my favourites. This is a Railroad Loco, as I've already said. It is one that I've had for absolutely ages, but the original review I did of it wasn't very good, as is the case with most of my older videos. So today I thought I would do the model justice and give it a proper look. And obviously I think most of us really quite like these, so it's going to be nice to spend some time looking at them today. So yes, indeed, the Loco today is going to be the BR Standard Class 9F by Hornby. One of their earlier railroad models, I would say, certainly one of the first ones I got, and I'm still really impressed by this model to this day, especially when you consider the price that they were able to put this out into the world for. Obviously on this channel I've looked at lots of 9Fs, I've looked at Evening Star, I've looked at the Franco-Crosty version, but this is the kind of, well, it's not the original. Evening Star was the Hornby original version, but this is the classic standard version of the 9F in BR Black. Let's take this out and let's have a look. So here it is then, the Hornby Railroad packaging, and yeah, possibly this was the first ever railroad model I ever got. So let's get to this quite quickly then, let's get to looking at this. Let me show you what it says on the end of the box. So the product code for this is R2880, BR9F number 92221, and yes, unfortunately I don't believe Hornby currently produced this, this particular version at the moment, but if you take a look on eBay, I'm sure you'll be able to find one if this is something that you really want. But for now, there's obviously not much to see on the outer packaging, so I'm going to go ahead straight away and get this unboxed for you. So here it is in the packaging, very standard, just the sort of, what would you call it, polystyrene packaging, no detail packs or anything like that. I'm not absolutely sure whether the 9Fs really needed vacuum pipes, but my version I don't think came with one, although I can't remember whether it was brand new or not. We also have this information booklet for the Class 9F. As you can see, it's a 210O steam locomotive according to that. Open this up, you can see it's very simple, not much to see here, a bit of lubrication, body removal, and you can also see that the DCC socket there is placed inside the locomotive, not the tender, which gives you an idea of the age of this, quite a few years old now. But yep, that is the information pack, and yes, just behind the sort of pane there she is, the Standard Class 9F, a 210O. I think the only 210O I've got is a 9F. So let's get this open and let's see what it's like. So I'll just flip this back. Shall we grab the tender first? Obviously this particular model does not have a permanent connection between loco and tender, which is a bit more convenient for unboxings at least. So there's the tender anyway, the late BR tender. Quite a nice looking thing actually, quite an old tooling as well I think. I believe this probably dates back to the 60s or probably 70s actually, yeah, 70s more likely. This particular version has a Mazak issue I reckon. You do get a lot of these tenders which sort of crumble into little pieces. Mine has done a bit of that. It did sort of swell up slightly, and this centre axle here was seized up, but I've managed to free it up now, and they are slightly wonky, but apart from that it is fine. So there we go, the 9F tender, very lovely thing. And let's grab the loco then, which as I say has been in my collection for a really long time. So there she is, number 92221, absolutely fantastic, and she still looks as good as she did when I bought her, she really does. So let me hold the tender with her then, if I can. Hang on, there we go. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, just look at that. They really were mightily impressive things. Probably not conventionally beautiful or anything like that, but certainly attractive. So the weight of this is pretty good. The tender itself is reasonably light, but not, you know, not dramatically so. The loco itself is really quite heavy, as it should be for such a large model. The bodywork is just made of plastic, which you would probably expect from a cheaper Hornby Railroad model, but the chassis block is really quite a big heavy thing, which gives it a lot of weight. So anyway, I will show you this model up close in just a second, but first of all, here's a little bit of history on the BR Class 9F. So, designed by Robert Riddles, the 9Fs were the last standard locomotives to be produced for British Railways. They represented the ultimate development in freight locomotives in this country, and they proved themselves to be extremely fast and powerful. With their 10 driving wheels, they became known as some of the most powerful locomotives ever constructed in Britain, but their reign proved to be quite short-lived. Evening Star was the last of the class, which was constructed in 1960, and it was also the last locomotive, the last steam locomotive that is, to be built by British Railways. It was the only locomotive to be built with the intention of preserving it before it was even finished, and it can still be seen today, of course, at the National Railway Museum. A total of 9 locomotives have been preserved, although sadly the rest were scrapped. So there it is then, up against the white background, my original Hornby Railroad 9F. Now, I think I'm right in saying that this particular model uses the same tooling as the sort of 1970s Triang Hornby version, as I sort of alluded to earlier on. And when that model was brand new, when it was first released, in tender-driven form of course, it was probably the most luxurious and totally impressive 00 gauge locomotive ever produced, and we're talking sort of 40, 50 years ago. Now today, in 2018, I don't think it's quite at that status. However, when you imagine the other sorts of locomotives that Triang were producing, and you can find lots and lots of them on my channel, lovely as they are, they were very, very basic compared with this. And when Evening Star came out, as I said, it totally knocked the socks off everything they'd done before. But like I say, even now, it does kind of hold up, doesn't it? Now, you can see why Hornby wanted to produce something like this in the railroad range, because it's the perfect choice. It's a very, very simple model, as we're going to see. Most of the detail is just moulded onto the bodywork, which is perfect. It reduces the amount of labour required to assemble them. The small number of separately fitted parts are quite easy to fit, and of course this version doesn't have any lining or anything like that, so there's quite a lot of money saved there. Obviously, more recently Hornby have done the Evening Star version of this, which was still part of the railroad range, but I think if I remember correctly it was quite a bit more expensive, because obviously there's a lot of lining going on. But no, this is the sort of cheaper version, although just as elegant really, I think, in the BR Black. So let's take a look at the locomotive and some of its painted detail. So most obviously the running number on the side of the cab there is relatively nicely applied. I mean, there's not really very much that can go wrong there, is there? And you've also got the 9F classification there. The smoke box door also has the running number printed onto it, which is quite a nice feature, I think, for a railroad model. And obviously, as you can see there, the buffer beam is quite nicely painted up. And I think while we're looking at the buffer beam, I will show you some of the other details there. So incredibly, this does have sprung buffers, which must have been an update, you know, from the original Triang version, because I'm pretty sure that didn't have sprung buffers. And as you can see, the front bogie there does have a coupling attached to it, but it's not a NEM one, unfortunately. I think Hornby's later 9F Evening Star version of this model did get an upgrade to have NEM couplings, possibly. I'll have to double check. But no, this version doesn't, unfortunately. But that's okay. So really, I think I've already shown you now all of the painted detail, unless I've missed anything, obviously. So as I already mentioned, separately fitted work is relatively minimal. I think, you know, really you can count them on the one hand. So we do have the smoke deflectors here, which I believe must be separately fitted, and it's a good job they included them, because I think the smoke deflectors are a really defining feature of the 9F. We do have the safety valves. I assume these will be safety valves on top, which firstly are made of metal, which is lovely to see, and secondly they are separately fitted, of course, so they do stand out from the bodywork quite nicely, which I think is pretty cool. And then obviously you've got the regular stuff like the handrails and things, which again are made of metal and separately fitted, which again is quite nice to see. A lot of those Triang era models did have just a moulded handrail on there, so it's really, really nice to see that this one didn't, and they've kept it like that. Now, as you can see, the pipework in front of the cab here looks almost as though it is separately fitted, but this is something that I've always found astonishing. It really is just part of the moulding, but they did such a good job of giving the impression of depth there. It just looks like it's all been separately fitted, which is exactly the kind of design clever technique we really want to see from Hornby, rather than what they did with the P2 or whatever. But no, that's very cool. And then finally, around the cab, you can see that we do have glazed windows on this model, which again is a great feature for a railroad model. I think there are 4 panes on each side in total, so that is really quite good. They could very easily have missed that off, being that this is just a cheap railroad model, but they haven't, so that's really, really good to see. Other than that, as you can see, quite a nice finish, not too glossy, not too matted. The wheel set is something else altogether. I mean, look at all the valve gear there, and it is quite fine scale, really, to say that this is a railroad model. They've done really quite a good job with that, I would say. And finally, I will just show you inside the cab. No surprises here, really. There is cab detail inside there, which is a good thumbs up, because it is an enclosed cab, so I suppose, feasibly, they could have just left that blank. But no, you've got detail in there, but clearly none of it is painted, so I suppose that's fair enough. So looking looking at the tender then, as you can see, you've got the late BR crest very nicely applied onto there. Regardless of the range, railways or railroad, Hornby always seem to do those nicely, which is great, which is lovely to see. Lots and lots of riveting going on the side of the tender there, very, very cool. We also have metal wheels, of course, with pickups, and as you can see there is a drawbar with the electrical connection on it there, which is good. It means that you get even more pickups on the model, which is great. Around the back you can see we have more separately fitted handrails in addition to the separately fitted ladder there. More sprung buffers, coupling hook on there, and also again a non-NEM coupling on the back. In the top we have a coal load pre-fitted. Now unfortunately that isn't removable because this tender originally would have had to house the ring-filled motor, so they needed as much space inside there as possible. However, obviously there's no ring-filled in there anymore, so if you really wanted to make a project out of this, you could probably cut that coal away and put your own in there. But as it stands, it really doesn't look too bad, does it, to say that it's 40 or 50 years old. No glazed windows on the cab section, unfortunately, and I think I have seen a few which did have glazing on there. Yeah, so that is a slight downfall, but this is a railroad model. This is not supposed to be a super detailed model, and I think taking that into consideration, it really is quite an impressive thing. So that's the detail. Let's get her down onto the track. This one is DCC fitted, so we'll give her a little run of the DCC controller and I will show you how nicely she runs after all this time. Okay, so there is the lovely Hornby 9F down onto the track, and assuming she works okay, she's about to be coupling to my ocean of ocean wagons. Yes, I thought it was about time I cracked those out again, so hopefully you'll enjoy seeing those run. So yeah, there's quite a bit to talk about with the performance on this. Obviously, the quality of the mechanism is always very good. You've got full metal bearings on the wheel set, and of course you have got the electrical connection in some form going to the tender wheels as well, which means that you have got at least a good electrical connection to the track. There is a bit of an issue with the tender on this one, as I mentioned earlier. Mazak rot strikes again. It means that this tender is now on a bit of a wonk. As you can see, it can rock a bit on the track, and I have put some extra weight into the tender, but sometimes on the particularly nasty curves on my layout it does tend to derail, and Hornby have since redesigned it. The 9F Evening Star, which I'm going to show in a moment, actually had a slight redesign on the actual tender. It doesn't have pickups anymore, but it doesn't have the sort of Mazak chassis anymore either, so I guess it's an improvement overall. Okay, well, as I say, she is DCC fitted, so I can't really get those super slow speeds out of her, but I will do my best. So here we go with Railmaster. I'm going to set it to, well, 7 miles an hour then. Let's see how that goes. See if she kicks in. Might have to give her a little bit more if not. There we go, we've got it. So that is, well, by Railmaster standards, that is set to 8 miles an hour. And as you can see, the slow speed is pretty good. I mean, it's not terribly smooth. It is a little bit sort of jumpy, isn't it? But it's certainly not too bad. And also you've got to take into account that I've had this model for quite a few years. So it's not brand new out the packaging, as some of my reviews are. But that isn't really too bad, is it? And she's also got quite a bit of speed to her as well. If I set her to, what, 47 miles an hour? As you can see, the faster she goes, the smoother it gets, I would say. I mean, look at this. Here we go. That is very, very smooth and quiet too, which is fantastic. Okay, so let's chuck her into reverse then, slow her down a bit so she doesn't crash into the wagons. There we go, there she goes at 15 miles an hour. Even at that speed, it is very smooth, as you can tell. So let's do a coupling then and see how that goes. Okay, I'm going to press the stop button as soon as she's there. There we go. Right, she's not in shot, bear with me. There we go, so let's see if she's strong enough to haul the ocean wagons. There's not quite 20 of them there, but they are quite old, so they do have a bit of drag to them. So let's see how this goes. These aren't massively powerful, but obviously as a 210 there is a fair bit of power there. So let's set her to about 40 miles an hour. That sounds like a good freight speed to me. Although, of course, in real life, the 9Fs were really quite fast. So there go the ocean wagons. See what else you can spot on the layout today. There are lots of freight locos, but there is an odd one out, one that isn't a freight loco. But for now, let me show you what's running on the inside line. So here we have the Franco Crosty version. Let me just bring her in and I will stop her for you. Now this version does have the TTS sound, which is very nice. I think, ooh, she's going to go out of shot. Let me just shove her back, a little bit of a cheat there. I think this is actually based on the same tooling as the 9F that I've just been showing you, except it has been modified quite dramatically, obviously to include the Franco Crosty modifications. But let me turn her sound on then. Very nice, the sound on this, quite subtle. Let's give her a nice long whistle. Nice, and let's get her off. Similar kind of speed then. And as you can tell, she is hauling some tanker wagons today. There we go, let's see if she gets off with those alright. Okay, very nice. And then on the inside line, it is the most famous 9F of them all. I've talked about her quite a lot today. She's got a passenger train with mixed coaches really, which is quite nice. It is of course Evening Star, so there she is in the lovely BR lined green. So enjoy the running session and don't forget to let me know in the comments afterwards if you spotted which loco was the odd one out. Okay, good luck. So there she goes, just up past the top of Gordon's Hill. As you can see, not an awful lot of wheel slip there, a little bit. You know, I wasn't always mightily impressed with the pulling power of these, but they really aren't too bad. And there's the Franco Crosty boilered version, going quite a bit quicker, but looking very lovely with those tankers, I think. Classic freight load there. Beautifully smooth, as you can see, and like I say, this model is a few years old now. I've had her a long time, and I think even then she might have been second hand, so she's doing well. There's the Franco Crosty with the lovely TTS sound. That one wasn't a bad price either, about 120 quid with the sound. Can't grumble really, can you? Yeah, I love this Franco Crosty version. It's a great variation, but it begs the question, do they still have the original tooling? Or was it sort of permanently modified? I'd love to find out the history of the tooling. Right, I'm here at the bottom of the Gordon Hill, should say Gordon's Hill, and I'm going to keep a close eye on the wheels of the railroad version here, and we're going to see if we can spot any wheel slip, so here we go. Anything? It's hard to tell because the wheels go faster than you'd expect them to anyway, but yes, I think there was a little wheel slip up at the top there, wasn't there? But it wasn't enough to kill her speed completely, and alas, she has managed to haul the wagons up there, so it's not bad. Not bad by any means. And here goes the lovely Evening Star, and doesn't it make a difference just to see her in such a lovely livery such as that? With a mixture of coaches, I've even thrown a Pullman in there too, which is nice. A couple of blood and custards at the back there as well. Seems to run really nice. So here are my ratings then for the 9F by Hornby, the railroad version. Detail 3 out of 5. Yes, the detail is really quite good, but clearly it's not as good as the top of the range stuff. However, I was quite impressed by it, so 3 out of 5 there. Power 4 out of 5. Historically, these are very, very powerful locomotives, and the models are too. However, they're not quite as powerful as you might expect. The Hornby version is very, very heavy, but it's not all that heavy, so you don't get the truly magnificent pulling power, but it does perform just about as expected, possibly a little bit better, so 4 out of 5 there. Slow speed also 4 out of 5, yes, a very good slow speed, nothing to grumble at there. Obviously, again, there are better locos for it, but it did pretty well. Now, quality, I've given this a 4 out of 5, which I do think is very, very generous. Possibly it doesn't deserve a 4 out of 5 because of the Mazak rot issue with the tender. However, the locomotive itself is very sturdily built, and I haven't had any Mazak rot with the loco yet. So hopefully I won't live to regret giving it a 4 out of 5 there, but that is being a bit generous. Value also, I don't have an exact idea of the RRP for this. I know that Hornby sold the Evening Star for about £100 or something like that, so presumably this version was cheaper, which means very, very good value for money, so I've given that 5 out of 5 there. Overall then, that is 7.92 out of 10, quite a good score there for a railroad loco, and into the ranking she goes 15th, just above the Hornby-Tyseley connection and below the Bachmann Mavis. Oh yes. They do just give the real impression of power though, don't they? Look at that. You could just believe that it was the real thing scaled down. I mean, they just look powerful. Apart from when they slow down due to wheel slip. That spoils the illusion very slightly, but only slightly. Okay folks, well I hope you enjoyed that. It was fun to revisit one of my old favourites here. So I hope you enjoyed it as well, of course, and if you did, please feel free to leave me a comment or even a like on the video, because I do love it when you give me feedback and get in touch. But for now, folks, I'm going to get on to some other videos for you. And I will leave it at that. So thanks for watching, folks. Lovely to have your company, as always. I do appreciate you keep coming back to watch these. It means a lot. So thanks for that, folks, and I will see you all very, very soon. And just as a bonus, I'll let the Franco Crosty go by one more time, just because I like it. Let's zoom in. There. Look at her go. Alright, take care, everybody. I will see you all very soon. Cheers, everybody.